From February of 2016 till October of the same year, my father, at the age of 75, hiked the Appalachian Trail over 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine. He's written a book about it called Northbound with Theo. He did it with his dog, and I am thrilled to have you, my father, on this YouTube channel to talk about your experience hiking the Appalachian Trail. Before we dive into some themes, we're going to talk about father-son relationships, we're going to talk about family relationships, we're going to talk about mountain adventures, we're going to talk about getting out into creation and what we learn by venturing into creation. If any of those themes are of interest to you, you're going to want to stay tuned for this conversation. But check this out. This is my dad in February of 2016, before he left for the Appalachian Trail. And this is my dad 7 months later, towards the end of his 2002, how many miles?
189.1.
2,189.1 miles. And how many steps? Approximately 5 million steps.
That's recognized.
I remember from being a kid that you had this bug in you. You took us on lots of camping trips as kids, me and my siblings. And I remember you saying, one day I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail from start to finish. And I remember just thinking, I didn't know exactly what the Appalachian Trail was, but I had the sense of just, my dad is going on an adventure. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's even going to the moon, but he's going somewhere. And you finally did it you left at age 74, you finished at age 75. How can you describe what called you out into the wild for 8 months?
That's the question. And when I was 12 years old, I hiked in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And crossing the Franconia Ridge of the White Mountains always stuck with me. It's hard to describe. Of course, you're reaching puberty at that age. I don't know if you're extra sensitive to everything around you, but that scenery and that experience just sank deep down into my soul.
And we would have, how many years later? 75 minus 12, so 63, 2 years later. Yeah. You would be on that same spot, and it just so happened that I was there with you and two of my sons, and we'll get to that later, because that's pretty much, as you yourself described it, the pinnacle of the trip.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the call of mountains. I have some quotes here on my screen that I excerpted from your book. You say, this is on page 8, mountains call to many of us. They offer us a vision and stir a deep, consuming hunger that will not relent until we reach and struggle to attain their heights. Can you speak into that call of the mountains?
You're going to make me cry.
That's tears, all right. Tears are good. Tears are fine.
It's so hard again to describe. I mean, how do you define God? How do you define love? How do you define joy? All of those imponderables are part of what the mountains do for me. I see a mountain and it's up, it's higher, it's above me. And there's just something that says, come, come.
Well, you went.
I went. Boy, did I go. And so that's always been the case with me. And
so you've heard this call your whole life, the mountains calling.
Yeah, I remember when we visited your brother, my firstborn, in Colorado, in Aspen, in 1993, the year our first grandchild, Bonnie's and my first grandchild was born. I'd bag a mountain every day. Every day I'd go out and I'd climb another mountain. It was just part of that innate something in me that answered something in nature. There was a bond there. There was a call. There was come. There was embrace.
You say on page 284 of your book, in the wild, I feel something of the reverence that St. John Paul II exhibited when he descended from his aircraft, knelt down, and kissed the ground. Tell me a little bit more about that reverence you feel for nature.
Well, I have to say that that too has always been a part of me. And let me go back to even my childhood at grade school age, pre-trail. Maybe I was 8, 9, 10.
So the first time you were exposed to the Appalachian Trail.
Yep.
That was 12.
Yep.
So 8, 9 years old. Go ahead.
Even before that, I went to Bill and Fred's 5 and Dime store. 5 and Dime, I don't know if people even know what that means anymore.
Yeah.
But
you grew up where?
In Springdale, Connecticut.
These are things I, of course, know.
Yeah.
For our audience.
Well, this was a 5 and Dime store. A ice cream soda cost 25 cents. Penny candy actually was a penny. And a Hershey bar cost 5 cents.
You were born in 1941, so we're in the late 40s here at the 5 and Dime.
Yeah, late
mid
40s.
To late 40s.
Yeah, at the most early 50s. But there was a pack of 6. First time I ever saw this, a pack of 6 white ballpoint pens that said to me, buy 6, use them, throw them away. I will never forget that moment. That hurt my heart.
Yeah, press into that. This is normal to me that you buy pens and use them and throw them away, but
they
was
never
a
saw
new
them.
thing.
Never saw them before. Never saw them in bulk. You went and you bought a pen. Most of us use fountain pens. You fill the ink and you write, you empty, you fill the ink and you write. But here was a ballpoint pen. You're going to throw those away? Where are they going to go? And you know where they go? Mother Nature.
Right, a landfill.
They go in a landfill. And that I had this realization, this feeling in my soul, even before the throwaway culture was underway. And the throwaway culture hurts. It hurts me. And when I'm out in nature, I'm with, it's a reverence. I don't want to make nature a goddess, but it's divine to me. It doesn't take God's place, but it's God's creation.
Yeah, it's God's creation. It reveals the mystery
Amen.
Of God. It's a reflection of God. The Catechism itself says that God's first message to us is written right into creation.
Oh.
This is one of the greatest gifts you have given me as my dad. I think of Mom gave me the gift of a love for music, and you gave me the gift of loving nature. I mean, I can still smell your hands when you would make a campfire when we would go on a camping trip. And you would put your hands in my face, and I would just inhale the smell of that campfire on your hands. I remember the flannel shirt that my older brother and I had, and I think you had a matching one too. And we would I remember going to the Peckway Creek campground as a little kid, and that's where my love of nature began. And that part of Lancaster County, we're in Lancaster County here, that part of Lancaster County still calls to me. And I know that part of Lancaster County calls to me because you took me there as a little boy, and I felt in my own little boy heart, I picked up on your love for and reverence of God's creation. And you instilled that reverence in my heart, and I'm so grateful to you. Let's talk about getting away from the busyness of life. You were an attorney from when I was born when you were in law school in 1969. You graduated from law school when?
70.
In 1970. So you were a lawyer from 1970 through you're retired now, but you were kind of wrapping up your affairs to get ready to go on the trail. And it was age 65 that you said, I'm going to do it, and it took you 10 years to train. Can you talk a little bit about the busy life of being a lawyer, the call of the mountains, all the while you're raising 5 kids, you're doing the husband and father thing, but all the while underneath this busy life as an attorney, you're still feeling this call of the wild. And tell us about age 65 when you said, I got to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to train, and getting away from the busyness of life and the commitment to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you remember as a boy hearing me say, someday I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail. I remember having supper at your house once, and I was talking about the fact that I'd done the trail, and I said that I don't remember really that this was in my mind a whole lot. And you said, oh yeah, I remember you were talking about it.
I remember it very clearly.
So it always was there, but I was actually 64 when the thought started to crystallize. And I was walking from our living room in Lancaster to the foyer in our house, and I remember at 64 realizing that the next year in 2006 I was going to turn 65. And I can tell you exactly where I was standing, and I can tell you that I was looking up to my right. I don't know why. I always look for something up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be neat to celebrate my 65th birthday on Katahdin?
And tell our listeners what Katahdin is.
Katahdin is a Penobscot Indian word that means greatest mountain. And it is the northern end, the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. So if you start in Georgia, you're going to finish at Katahdin. And Katahdin is about 13 feet shy of a mile high. And it's a mile-high pile of boulders in a huge wilderness. The mountain just stands out by itself. I remember describing it as though, the earth pushed up Katahdin and then, flattened out all around, exhausted from the effort. But I could not have started at Katahdin and hiked southbound.
Well, it would have been all downhill if you had done that.
There was a lady that actually thought that. She said, why don't people just go southbound? It's all downhill. Not quite. But I forget exactly the question, but how did it all crystallize and come in?
And you had a busy life as an attorney and as a husband and a father, but all the while, all those years underneath, there was this call that you had to eventually respond to. And you said you had hoped to do it, you had hoped to be at Katahdin for your 65th birthday, but it didn't come to fruition for another 10 years.
That's right. Yeah.
So what happened in those 10 years when you said, I'm going to do it, but it took 10 years to do it?
Well, I was a very busy trial lawyer, and toward in the early 2000s, or let's say 2010 and after, I saw my practice beginning to not have quite the clientele as it did before. Things were slowing down a little bit for me, and when 2015 came along, at that time I was able to refer enough cases that I knew I would begin to do the trail. But okay, from 1964, 65 rather, looking ahead to my 65th birthday until 10 years later.
Wait, you said 1965. 1965, you got married.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking years. I was 65.
When you were 65.
When I was 65, then it took me another 10 years to get ready. Not the year I got married. Age does things to your brain, It all blends together after a while. But anyhow, so for 10 years, from the time I first thought that I'm going to do it, and incidentally, I like to describe that as a whale. Like when I was a child, that whale, that desire at age 14, at 2 years after that 12-year-old experience in Franconia Ridge, that's when I first conceived the idea of through hiking the entire Appalachian Trail. 60 years later, at age 64, I am, is that right? Or is that 50 years later?
That's 50 years
50 years later. At age 64, it was as if that whale had been way down in the bottom of the ocean, sounding every so often for air, but mostly it's just this quiet presence, very important, big, moving, large presence deep within me. And as I saw my 65th birthday coming at me, it's as if that whale just breached out of the ocean. And I saw it, and I thought, whoa, I'm going to do this. And that was locked in place from that moment. And every year, for 10 years, I said to my office and to my family,
yeah, I remember these 10 years.
if I can close my office by the end of this year, I'm going to start the Appalachian Trail next spring. 10 years, I said that.
Took 10 years to do it, yeah.
But
you were also training during those years. You were going on these long hikes to get ready, and you were doing all the research necessary, and that took a lot of time and energy. I remember my own love of backpacking got reawakened when you were going on these training hikes, and you invited me to bring my boys along, and I hadn't been backpacking myself in probably 20 years because of my own busy life and raising kids. But you invited me along, and the bug got in me as well. And it's been a great gift to me and my children to take them out into nature and pass on to them what you passed on to me. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of preparations you needed and what you went through in those 10 years to get yourself ready to do a 2,200-mile hike?
I don't think I really began seriously hiking to prepare for the trail. My memory tells me it was around 2010. So I had 6 years of hiking to get ready. My purpose was to know if my body could do it, to know if I was in pain in particular areas, to know how much I could carry, to weed my gear down to something that was manageable, to try out what kind of foods I would survive on. Did I need to carry any particular medicines? How much water could I haul, and all that kind of, and all of that I did with my dear, sweet, sorry to say this, friends, late golden retriever.
All right, we got to talk about Theo now.
Yeah.
So the book is called Northbound with Theo. There's a link in the show notes to get your own copy. And Theo did the whole trail
every
with
step.
Beautiful golden retriever. Talk about the bond that you and Theo had and the role that Theo played. Obviously, such an insignificant role that the title of the book is Northbound with Theo.
You better believe it.
So talk about your love of dogs. And
I've always loved dogs. I think an animal. I was kind of experienced with horses too as a kid. I worked on a cattle ranch in Wyoming. But animals, there's a section in the book I called Rescue Dog. Not because I rescued him, but because he rescued me. Busy life, paying the mortgage, paying this bill, getting that appointment done, so-and-so showing up, yada, yada, yada. And I would not think of Theo during a busy day. I wouldn't think of him at all. Not at all. But when I walked in that back gate and I saw Theo, my whole world changed. Every concern of my adult life absolutely disappeared. And sometimes
so you're talking about your busy day-to-day life, working as an attorney, but you'd come home from the office, and when you saw Theo, the worries went out the window.
It just disappeared. Because I'm going to relate to him on his level. It's not like I'm going to say, hey, Theo, how was your day? Tell me about what did you do today? You don't do that. You talk dog talk, and you come right down to his level. And I'm a very physical kind of person. I love holding him, squeezing him, petting him, whatever. Wrestle on the floor with him. But Theo he's a buddy for sure. And he did all of the preparatory hikes with me. So every single step I took, incidentally, we did 480 miles.
Just to prepare.
Did the Long Trail of Vermont, the Black Forest Trail with you and Thomas, and
John Paul.
John Paul.
Our son,
Yeah, John Paul
was it?
Thomas. And then we did the Ironstone Loop,
Yeah, I remember the Ironstone Loop, doing that with you.
which
We did that. Was that the one we did in winter?
we did in winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a rainy, snowy night
Yeah,
the first night. And
Oh,
then-
a fire on those. Oh, remember getting the fire started that night? We were frozen to the bone. And that was just sheer heaven on earth to have somewhere to warm your frozen fingers.
yes. But it was interesting to me that Ironstone Loop, there's sort of a clue in that name, but I didn't realize it until I'm walking
Yeah.
over those stones.
Yes.
But anyhow, and multiple other trails. And during the course of all those hikes, I began toward the end of all of them to experience pain in my left knee, and I would have to back down the mountain.
I remember that. There was a large descent that we were on.
Yeah.
And you went down the whole thing backwards.
Backwards, I had to, so that because
Thomas, was that the time you burnt your hand?
I think it was.
You spilled some.
A hot ramen.
Oh, you spilled hot ramen noodles on your hand. Sorry for laughing. I shouldn't laugh. I remember the scalding on your. You make do when you're out in.
I still have a scar from that.
Oh my goodness.
But so I realized I'm going to have to do something about this. And in May of 2014, I had a partial knee replacement. I mean, obviously, I didn't have the problem except going down mountains. But I was going to be going down mountains. There's no question about that. So I had the partial knee. And 3 months after I had that partial knee replacement, I was back on the Horseshoe Trail preparing, and I carried 30 pounds on my back for 70 miles, and I had almost no problems. So, and on the trail, on the Appalachian Trail, I fell in such a way that...
Talk about your injuries. You had several injuries on the
Yeah.
trail, and how you managed. I mean, by the end of the trail, the last 100 miles, your
Right shoulder.
Your right shoulder was almost unusable.
it was unusable.
So you're putting up a tent with one arm.
I think I could use I could use my arm to put up the tent, as I recall.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say that. What was I going to say?
We were talking about you had mentioned an injury, and then I said, tell us about your injuries.
The knee on the Appalachian Trail, I fell in such a way that this is the left knee I had replaced, that my left heel contacted my left buttock. So I don't think I could do that today.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, I felt strain, but thankfully no problems. And I won't do it, but I should give a pitch to the doctor. But anyhow, I had a wonderful doctor. And I had injuries.
How many falls?
I think I fell, really, I don't think this is an exaggeration. I think I fell about 50 times.
So you're tripping on a rock, or tripping on a root, or going down a steep descent and lose your balance, or it's just
There's so many ways.
over 5 million steps you're going to fall.
And I figured that out. At 50, that's every 100,000 steps.
You have a tumble.
You have a
Yeah.
tumble. So that's
Some of these, you dislocated some teeth on one of those?
my left incisor in Maine, after the White Mountains, where I was going slowly in Maine, actually northern New Hampshire, I began to think, okay, I got to make up miles. And I remember tooling along saying, a double-digit day, a double-digit day, a double-digit day. Wham!
Mm-hmm.
Down I went. I hit something. I didn't even stop to look. I hit something with my right toe, right foot, and bam, I went down. Of course, I got 30 pounds on my back, and your arms just go out and support you. And my face hit a root, and it broke the jaw enough that this tooth became loose, and I couldn't close my teeth entirely. But prior to that, I'd had a fall. I remember this very well. July 31st in Connecticut, I'd gotten up to answer a call of nature after having lunch by a stream. I walked into the woods. I brought my left foot forward, and it wouldn't move. I hopped on my right leg, and it wouldn't move. And I did not have a pack on then, and I went, boom, down I went. On the ground. I'm lying on the ground, and I look back. What the heck was that? And there I saw mid-shin level.
Oh, I remember this in the book.
Rusted barbed wire.
Oh, gosh.
And I had stepped that close with my right foot to the barbed wire, not touching it. And when I brought my left foot forward, it didn't go. When I hopped with my right leg, obviously it didn't go. Face down I went anyhow. So that was the first time I injured the right shoulder. When I whammed the tooth up in northern New Hampshire, I'm sure if it weren't for my arms, I'd have done a lot more damage to my face. But that's when I think my right shoulder just gave up.
And a doctor told you to stop, right? To pull off the trail.
Yeah, when I got to Munson, Munson, Maine, my right shoulder was hot and swollen, and my dear mother, your mother, my dear wife, Bonnie, I told her, I said, Bon, I really injured my right shoulder and I can't use my arm anymore, but I really got this, I got a great way to do this. I just put my trekking pole through my straps and I can rest my arm on that and I just have a sling. So I'm happy, and Bonnie's thinking, you what? This is good news? Anyhow, so when I got to Maine, I realized that my shoulder was injured enough that I had to have somebody look at it. So I go to, took me 2 or 3 days because they get doctors from outside of where I was, and they came and the doctor aspirated my right shoulder and got 45 cc's of cloudy fluid out of it. And I'm in the hospital for 4 days on vancomycin antibiotic drip. And the doctor comes into my room one morning and he says, I think we should operate. And all kinds of questions. And then I call a shoulder surgeon friend here in Lancaster. And I said, Tim, what do you think? He said, I think you should have the surgery. So I said to him, I said, Tim, help me out here. If I had infection in my shoulder, from what I understand, I would be in serious pain. He said, yes. I said, I'm not. If I had infection in my bloodstream, I'd have an elevated temperature, wouldn't I? He said, yes, you would. I said, I don't. And, of course, they were very concerned because of my partial knee replacement.
Right.
Because if you get infection in your blood, it goes to that knee, and then they have to do the whole knee again.
Yep.
But the doctor who wanted to do the surgery sent in an EMT guy to persuade me. And I told him my reasoning, and the EMT guy said, I get it. He was right with me.
The point here is that you were not going to give up easily here.
No way.
And there was, I remember in the book, there was someone a few years older than you who was doing the trail that year who had an accident. And because of that sad accident, you were that year the oldest person to finish the trail.
Correct.
And are you in the top 10 now? Or what?
When I finished, I was one of 5 people my age who had...
Your age or older?
My age or older, who had finished the trail.
So at the time of completion in October 2016, you could say, I am one of 5 people who, my age or older, thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail. That's impressive.
Yeah. Now, and it's not because of me, but now there are 5 more. Mm-hmm. And I finished at 75. Another guy did it at 82. And now Nimble, somebody, I forget his full name, trail name.
Talk about trail names.
Well, he's 83.
Nimble is 83.
Nimble's 83.
And Nimble obviously is not his given name. So everybody takes a trail name. Yep. So share a little bit about that and then tell the viewers your trail name.
Okay. It's a wonderful thing. I don't know how it all got started. I don't know anything about that, but it's a wonderful thing to leave that busy life that we all live in society, to be out in Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. You don't only leave your busy life, you leave your identity. Mm. You're not Soren West. Mm. You're not Christopher West, right, or Thomas West. You're whatever trail name you get. I have to tell you, some people don't sign trail names, they forget. And one person asked another, this gal said, "Do you have a trail name?" And she said, "Not yet." That became her trail name.
That was her trail name.
Yeah. Another gal came out of the woods and scared some people, and she said, "Don't worry, I'm not a bear." That became her trail name.
Not a bear.
Not a bear.
Not a bear.
I gave myself my trail name, which is Sojo. It stands for sojourner, in the belief that we're all kind of just passing through. And so my sojourn on the Appalachian Trail, my sojourn through life, is all part of Sojo's undertaking.
Can I go through some highlights of the book?
Sure.
Things that I thought,
Sure.
lines that you said here in your writing that just struck me. This is on page 223. You say, "To hike day after day was to live with a persistent yes to life and the immediate good of being alive." Talk about that yes to life that you experienced in hiking day after day.
The whole idea of the Appalachian Trail, and it as you know, it just was in my craw. And then to say yes at last to the desire to do the trail, to go into Mother Nature, not for a short little saunter.
Yeah, this is no short camping trip.
Yeah. I have to talk about Grandma Gatewood in a moment, but for a considerable adventure, a total break with everything I've ever known except by short hops here and there into the woods. But to go and be with nature, climbing mountains, as I've said and you pointed out, call to me. It's a big yes to life. It's a big yes to something challenging, to something that demands a lot of you. Somewhere else in the book, I say we love what demands a lot.
I think I have this quote right here. You say, this is page 256. "You love what demands much of you. The more you give and survive, knowing you have given your all, the more you love what has required the effort. You hike to do it, and you hike to have done it, to reap its great reward."
And I'm doing that. I'm reaping the great reward now, even just having this conversation with you. I love it. And I reap the great reward writing the book. And I'll give more talks and respond to people who have read the book and enjoy it. I have two people, two different families want to meet with me just to talk about the trail. I'm loving that, reaping so much from that.
How can people contact you to learn more about, if they want to bring you in to give an inspirational talk or something? What?
At the end of the book, my website, which has kind of lain fallow because I took so much time to write the book, but I tried to blog a lot. But that's hikersojo.com.
Hikersojo.com. Thomas, can we put that in our notes? So check out in the notes below. We'll have the website if you want to contact my dad. He loves to talk about the trail. So.
It's hard to tell.
Can I share some other thoughts? You say, this is page 224. "Oh, how good to have a goal, and out there that draws you into itself." Talk about that. Having that goal and just allowing, it's like, well, you say somewhere else in the book that you were struggling. It was maybe it was the 100-mile wilderness in Maine or something.
No, that was in Pennsylvania.
Where you were saying it is not yet, but it will be. You know that.
That was Speck Mountain.
It is not here, but it will come.
But it will come.
But it will come.
Yeah.
So those two quotes, one from earlier in the book and one from later. "Oh, how good to have a goal, and out there that draws you into itself." And then in that time of struggle, and I think this is where the real, the allegory or the metaphor for life itself. I mean, this is something that so blesses me when I'm out in the woods hiking. Hiking to me, or backpacking to me, is like a sacrament of the interior journey. There's no doubt that you didn't just go hike the trail. The real trail is in here. I mean, there's stuff that is getting churned up inside, and there's stuff you're looking at, and the journey of the interior life that we're called to make to discover who we really are as God created us to be is kind of like a backpacking trip. You have a load on your back, often baggage, painful stuff in your life that you got to carry with you through life. You have times where you just don't want to keep going. You have times where the weather's bad. Then you have times where the sun breaks through. Then you have times, as we were saying earlier, you're so cold, but you start that fire and there's that glow of hope. You have that difficult mountain ascent, but then you get to the top and you see the vistas. I draw from those bodily, visceral experiences that I've had backpacking. I draw from them all the time to make sense out of the interior journey. And I really believe, and I said this to you when you finished the trail, you'll remember this. I was in Australia giving a series of lectures when you came to the finish line. And I called you. It was the middle of the night for me, but I
4 a.m.
4 a.m. Oh, yeah, 4 a.m. for me. I was awake, and I knew you were finishing the trail, and I called you, and I guess I left a voicemail. You didn't answer.
You did.
And I sensed the spiritual ramifications for our entire family, that you had the nerve and the gumption and the courage and the fortitude and the grace to do what you did at 75 years old. Like that carving that path through 2,200 miles of wilderness, and on the East Coast too. Like, it would have been different had you done it on the West Coast. It would have been different had you done it in Europe or something. I mean, our family's from the East Coast. And you know, I talk about this often in my lectures and my books. It's no surprise to my followers that there's a lot of broken SHIT in our family line. And it felt to me like almost like, you know, Forrest Gump. He had all that stuff inside, and he just felt like running, and you just felt like hiking.
That's absolutely right.
Had to do it. Forrest Gump had to run across the country however many times to get the inner, pardon my Polish, the inner shitski. He had to get it out. And there's a lot of shitski in our family bloodline, and I felt like you were like hiking it off or getting it out by doing that 2,200 mile journey, and being in the downstream in the bloodline from you. I just felt as your son that you were opening something up spiritually for me, for all of my siblings, and for all of our offspring. We in the studio right here, we are 3 generations of Wests. We have you, my father Soren, we have Christopher, and my son Thomas is the producer of our YouTube channel. And it's significant to me because of that path that you cut, that you split open, not just physically, but in physically doing it. You were working this stuff out in the family bloodline. I know it benefits me. I know it benefits my children. I know it's going to benefit their children. Can you speak to that? Like you speak candidly in your book about the painful upbringing you had. You speak about your alcoholic parents. You speak about your father who, when he would find your mother drunk, would beat her till she had black and blue marks. That's heavy duty stuff. And in some ways you were like Forrest Gump, you had to get this, you had to get it out. Can you speak into that? Some of the experiences you had in the hike, where some of the pain, maybe the hurt you were carrying, got worked out. I'm remembering a scene in the book. Maybe I made a note of it. Let me see if I can find this page number. And this was one of the most moving parts of the book to me. Oh yeah, page 157 here. Let me look it up here. Where you're talking about all these voices in your head as you're hiking along, voices of criticism from your brother and your father. And you talk about you were one of 2 sons, and that your older brother was clearly favored by your father, and you were kind of considered on the margins in those family dynamics. And so you're hiking along, and you say, I I came to a point on the trail where I took charge of these critical voices that had been haunting me. Like you had said that you were hiking along, and it's like you heard your brother's voice say, like mocking you or saying, you can you get into that section?
Sure.
What was going on there? And then there was a beautiful, some kind of healing that happened in your heart. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Wow. You've brought up an awful lot.
I sure have.
Yeah, an awful lot. And, the metaphor of the trail, point A to point B, that's our life, right? We're born, we die.
Yeah.
And lots of ups and downs in between, obviously. I mean, the metaphor is inescapable. And you talked about, my reference to, the joy and blessing of having a goal.
Yeah.
And I crave a goal. I need a goal. I always want something out there. Sometimes the goal is just right here in front of your nose and needs to be tended to. But a larger goal that pulls together your resources, that, as I said, you love what demands much of you, something that's going to demand a lot of you, and you're going to be giving a lot, if not all of yourself to that goal. We want that. We crave that. Well, the Appalachian Trail was that for me. And Katahdin is out there, for the northbounder. Northbounder is a Nobo, a southbounder is a Sobo, and Springer Mountain just didn't do it for me.
Sojo was a Nobo.
Sojo was a Nobo. Springer Mountain is the start for a Nobo, namely Sojo. And Katahdin is the finish. The reverse didn't work for me. But what a miracle was in that orientation that I had to go from foreign lands. I'm not a Southerner. I don't know the South.
Yeah.
I don't know the people of the South very well. I know them some. I know them a lot better now. And midway pass through the state in which I'm raising my family and I have had my career.
Is Pennsylvania the midway point?
It is. Halfway point is just north of Pine Grove Furnace in Pennsylvania. And there's a sign there. It'll show you. They move it every year because sometimes the trail length changes.
Right.
And anyhow, so yeah, Midway is PA. Uh-huh. And then to go from Pennsylvania, I called it in the book Back to the Future. Because in Pennsylvania, I'm going back
to where you grew up.
To where I grew up.
New England.
And then back farther north to territory I was familiar with but hadn't lived in, into northern New England. But it was remarkable to me to realize that as I go, I mean, the South was, hey, we're doing the trail. Wow, this is really great. I'm having a good time. I can't, and footnote, I never wanted to quit. Never. I knew, and with all the preparation, I was ready. I knew exactly what I was in for. I don't know if Theo knew, but I'd like to. Bobby likes to think we, because I always say we. We set up our tent.
Right,
we did this.
right.
We did that.
And you know the number of people on average that start and the number of people that finish in a year. What is that?
It's about a quarter finish. It used to be the amount to finish has crept up over the years.
And how many typically start?
In my year, it was about 3,000 people.
3,000 started, and
maybe what would that be? 75 or something finish? More than that. It was almost. It was pushing 1,000, I think, my year that finished.
So a third.
That would be
3,000
a
started,
third.
and nearly 1,000 finished.
Yeah, a lot of people just think, wouldn't it be great to hike the Appalachian Trail?
They go out unprepared.
You
You were not unprepared.
Not in the least.
You were prepared for virtually anything and everything.
Everything. Yeah. I even saw a bear before I got on the trail, and saw many on it. But
so you were saying you're hiking back to the future.
Back to the future.
Into your own childhood territory.
Yep.
And is this where these memories were?
Well, this is what was fascinating to me. And obviously, this isn't by design. So who is doing this? D,
Mm-hmm.
God's got a plan somehow. And as I'm passing from unfamiliar turf through my adult life turf toward my childhood turf, it's in that adult life turf that I begin hearing, "Why'd you do that? That was stupid. Why'd you step from that rock? Why didn't you do this? How come you didn't do that?" And I thought, whoa.
Where are those voices coming from?
I mean, I knew what they represented, but why are they surfacing now?
Yeah.
I didn't ask that question. They just did surface, and I dealt with them. And I thought, in that process, I was aware that I'm in Pennsylvania, and this is interesting that these voices are coming now. And I just, because, and this is interesting, I'm only realizing this as I speak, that because I was saying yes to something deep within me, I wasn't doing something to please my father. I wasn't doing something because my brother said I was stupid, therefore I don't want to be stupid. I was doing me. I was doing Sojo. And the trail was what has always meant so much to Sojo. And somehow I think that yes to something deep within me, nobody put it there except God.
Yeah.
And my own attentiveness to the goodness of life.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably why I was able to take control of those voices. And I turned them into, hey, nice move.
Yeah.
Hey, clever. Boy, nice recovery from a fall or whatever, And I took charge. And I think it's because of my yes.
Amen. Yeah, you gave a yes to this journey, which, as we were saying a few moments ago, is not only a journey through the woods, it's a journey through your own heart and its history. And there's no, it's not strange that these voices were coming to you, these voices of criticism, while you were walking into the land of your own childhood.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Can I read this section of the book?
Please,
because
yeah.
it really moved me, because, as they say, the sins and the wounds of the father become the sins of the wounds of the son. And this stuff touches me deeply because
sure.
I'm your son. And that's what I was, when I called you from Australia, I felt, and you had finished the trail, I was like, there's something rumbling in the spirit here. There's something breaking free. There's something breaking loose. There's something breaking open. And it was good, and it was holy, and it was frickin' hard to crack that nut. But some nut had gotten cracked, and I felt graces were flowing. And I came to such an appreciation of you in a new way. There's every father and son, they have their rocky times and their good times and difficult times. We've had both in our relationship over, I'll be 53 this year, so.
We have?
But I think what I felt was, my dad is doing some hard interior work that is creating a space for me to look at things I need to look at. And it was opening a space for me to experience new freedoms. And I know that's going to have an effect downstream. Anyway, this is the section in the book that spoke to me in such a particular way. As you had described, you had heard these voices, your dad's criticism, your older brother's criticism. And you say, were these people actually looking down on me and seeing what I did? Did they see a near fall because I misstepped? Did they know only what they could criticize? And then you had this grace to turn those voices around. And I, as I read this in the book, I wondered, were these, was it just you turning these voices around, or were you actually here? Were you actually hearing
Mm.
your father and your brother from the other side speaking to your heart
Mm.
words of truth and affirmation that because of their own pain in this life, they weren't able to show
Mm.
you.
Mm.
But from the other side, they saw what you were doing, and it was also setting them free. Like when we make these, when we embrace these challenges and we turn it into a prayer, and I really believe your whole hike was a prayer. Like you were working stuff out. And not only does that have an effect downstream, it has an effect upstream. You know, we talk about our praying for those who are on the other side but are in need of purification.
Mm.
And I think your labor of love, which again was not just a walk through the woods, but a walk through your heart and its own history, there was a freedom being granted, getting opened up in both directions in the bloodline. And I would venture to say, this wasn't just you turning those voices around. I think you may well have been hearing your dad and your brother offering you the affirmation that they weren't able to give you in this life. And so
I'm wondering if I address that a little bit in there, because I've had similar thoughts.
yeah, well, let's see how you put it here. You say, I would turn those voices around, those voices of criticism,
Yeah.
like, why'd you step on that rock, or why'd you do it that way?
Yeah.
I gave my father and brother each a new mind, which became consciously aware of only positive moves. I spoke for them now, so that on my next step among the rocks, they remarked, and I really believe they did. That they remarked, good move, Sojo. Nice recovery, good choice. I'm in awe of what you're doing. You're a remarkable person, a truly remarkable human being. Congratulations. I hear only a faint echo of those earlier judgmental voices these days. That's a major breakthrough. The heart cries out, and you say this somewhere in the book, how our hearts just yearn to be validated, to be affirmed, to be seen, to be recognized as valuable and worthy of honor. And you didn't get a lot of that growing up because of pain from your older brother that he dumped on you. I always identified with you growing up because I was also the second of two sons.
Yep.
You only had two children in total in your family of origin. You had another 3 after I was born, so 5. But my older brother was always compared to your older brother, and they were remarkably similar.
Oh, yeah.
And I was always compared to you, and you and I are remarkably similar. And like you, I didn't get a lot of affirmation from my older brother growing up. And when I hear this redemption, these voices of your older brother speaking,
Oh, my.
it just, the heart's so naked in that place,
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
so naked and needy. And you know what? I'm at a place in my life where I'm able to say, it's good to be naked and needy. It's good. It's right. It's true. It's honest. It's real.
Oh.
And I for so long in my life, and I'm telling you, you helped open this stuff up by making this hike. For so long in my life, my naked need was ugly to me, and to be rejected and to be covered over, and because those were the places of my deepest wounds of rejection. When my needs were on display, when my broken humanity was on display, when my quirks were on display, this is where the criticisms would come, and the real degradations. And I've learned how to turn that pain also into a prayer, you know, going on my own interior journey, looking at that stuff and opening it up. But I really felt when you made that 2,200 mile journey that the interior work you were doing, as evidenced, especially for me in this story and many other places in the book, that interior work you were doing, I just want to say thank you. It was beautiful. And I grew up, with you when you were working through a lot of painful stuff from your childhood, and I was afraid of you as a boy. I remember, dinner table, hard day. You would have had a hard day at work. Dinner table atmosphere was just rough. It was not pleasant to be in your presence because you were pissed at something. And whenever you would say, Bon, I got to go back to the office tonight. My reaction was, phew, thank God, it's going to be peaceful around here tonight. And I'm just sharing that because it, and I'm not saying that to wag a finger at you or any such thing, but to paint a picture of these wounds of the father become the wounds of the son. And our family history is got a lot of pain in it. We only go back with a knowledge as far as your grandfather, your father's father, who was...
Whom I never knew.
Whom you never knew because he left...
He left his wife, my father's mother. He died of alcoholism himself. He died in a barn fire in New Jersey that people believe, whatever investigation I think revealed it was he smoking, living in a barn. And he's buried in Potter's Field, which is a place for people that can't afford burial.
Have you ever visited that grave?
I don't even know where it is.
Is there? I wonder if we could ever find it.
I that would be interesting. I don't know anybody who's. My parents didn't. My father
didn't know where it was.
Not that I know of.
What was his name?
Nathan.
That's right. Nathan West.
And I pray for him. Well, yes, we do together.
We've written a prayer together to pray for our bloodline.
Yes.
I would like to propose right here that you or I do some research to see if we can find that Potter's Field and we go on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah. So
I'll come.
All right. I think something's calling there. And this is, I thought we might touch on some of these things in this conversation, but I didn't know we'd get into these depths. But the point here that I was trying to make is the wounds get passed on. So your grandfather left the family, was an alcoholic. Your father grew up without a father. He brought his pain into alcohol and all kinds of illicit sexual actings out. I remember when I was engaged to Wendy. It was the summer of 1995, and I went to your parents' house to have my grandparents meet Wendy. And I just felt, okay, I'm entering into married life. There's a broken inheritance here, and I need to know more of the history. And I had a conversation with your dad. I don't even know if I've ever shared it with you, where I wanted to know, how many times had he been unfaithful to my grandmother?
You told me.
Have I told you that?
Did, yeah.
And he said, I can't even count. But as he said it, though, there was like a look in his eye, like, oh shit, like my choices have consequences. There was a little, like it was
really
a little back in the, and he's looking at his grandson who just recently got engaged, and he's looking downstream, and he's seeing. I think he understood why I was asking him that question.
Wow, you hadn't told that.
And I don't
to
even
me.
know that I could even articulate that until this very moment.
Yeah.
That he knew why I was asking that. That was the look in his eye.
So he wasn't celebrating.
No.
There was
no.
There was a.
No, he was not celebrating.
There was a sadness in there.
There was
a hint of sadness.
There was a hint of sadness.
Wow. It's interesting because, and this is a deep loss for Wests I don't know a whole lot about my history, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
I go back to Nathan. Grandma Cone was my father's grandmother. I think I met her once. My father and his sisters kind of kept their distance. One lived across the country, and he said, "No, I hate Hazel." And Maud, great kind of, I think of that as a great New England name, was a Peach. And they liked each other, but we never saw each other much. They lived up in Maine. Miles Standish, not by blood related to me, but by marriage, was Maud's husband, and he ran a lumber camp up in Maine that my brother worked at. But I meet people like a young man that your sister Marion has met recently, just as a friend, who's a big, tall guy, Eric, and I think he can trace his family back to the 1600s.
Crazy.
And I've met other people that can do that. And there's something in the Jewish tradition where there's such a connection with family and remembering relatives and so forth that appeals to me. And when I met your mother, she's from a large family, and over the course of the years of our marriage, I've come to refer to her family as the black hole. Everybody kind of comes together and stays together and doesn't want to separate. Well, my family's like a centrifuge.
Yeah.
It's go,
Yeah.
get out, move, do something else. Go find yourself.
Yeah, you were sent off to summer camp,
Six,
and
six.
then sent off to boarding school in high school.
Boarding school, high school. I went to all boys schools my whole life, and anyhow, yeah.
I just want to regather the thread that what's the metaphor? A thread that I was weaving, or
The thread that I was following.
following? Yes. Back. Let me get back on track here. What I was saying was, growing up, when you, as a young man in your 30s and 40s, were processing pain from your childhood, you turned 40 in 1981. I turned 12 in 1981, and you're in a lot of pain. And as a 12-year-old boy, I can't make sense out of the pain you're in, but I'm feeling it.
Mm.
And I remember seeing other boys, and then a little older, like in my early 20s, I remember one guy I knew in particular I went to school with who just wanted to be like his dad.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, oh, wow, you want to be like your dad. My dad is angry. And I can tell the story because you have come such a long way, Pop. And this I have to paint this picture to then get to where I'm getting about the trail and what you did at the trail and what I said to you.
The trail? What trail?
Do you remember when you got back, a couple weeks after you got back, you and I went out to breakfast at a diner in Lancaster, and I wonder if you remember what I said to you. But I have to tell this story to then tell that story.
Go ahead.
So I remember seeing this guy I went to school with who just wanted to be like his dad. And I didn't understand that because I didn't want to be angry like you were angry.
Mm. Nor did I.
Yeah, and you have worked so much of that. And even in recent years, I've seen you working through that in ways that have blessed me, especially, and the trail here has been a very significant moment in our family history.
Mm.
When you got back from the trail and we went out to breakfast, and I felt this stuff breaking open, like I felt you had like Moses through the Red Sea or something. I don't know. Speaking of Moses, check that out. I mean, if that's not Moses on the mountaintop. But we went out to breakfast after you got back from the trail, and I said this from my heart, and I meant it. I want to be like you.
Oh,
I want to be like you. I want to be like you.
I do remember.
I want to be somebody who faces those challenges of life and keeps going. Pop, this is your gift to your children.
Yeah.
You have faced so many challenges, and for 52 years, I've witnessed them, and you have kept going.
Mm-hmm.
You have never given up. And the trail, facing all those obstacles, cracking your tooth out of its socket, losing mobility in your arm. I remember a picture of your toes and you had all this stuff in between them. And you're like, F it all, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And you kept going.
That is truly a metaphor for how difficult life can be.
Yes.
And the need to not give up. And I don't know if you have noted that, but I'm sure you have somewhere. But in this book, I speak about my progeny, and I pray that they take from this old guy, don't give up.
Yes, I think I know where that is. In the
Never give up.
Yeah, let me turn to this. This is.
And while you're looking for that,
Yeah.
I want to say the beautiful thing about all of this is that I was not giving up.
Yes.
And I did this for me. I did not do this for anybody.
But the fruit.
I didn't do it for my progeny.
I know.
And this is all part of the beautiful thing about it.
Yes.
Because then at some moment, as happened with my writing of this, I stopped and I saw what I had done with the grace of God. And I addressed my progeny. Don't give up, no matter what.
Thank you, Pop. Thank you.
No matter what.
Thank you, Pop. Yeah, you. This is, I think, the section of the book you were referencing. You say, this accomplishment rests upon an unseen altar. It is a humble sacrifice of my spirit to my progeny, to life itself, to the gift of traveling this planet for a time. This was for me. I did it because I had to. But it is also for all who follow me. And I feel that, like, I'm your son. I'm your son. I follow you. And I've had to wrestle in my life with the things I saw in you that I didn't want to follow. And as I look at you in your 80s now, you're 81 years old, and you get, when I'm 12 years old, I see this much of my dad, right? Now in my early 50s, I see much more of the arc of your journey and your story. And whereas in my teenage years and then into my 20s, I'm working through I don't want to be like my dad because he was so angry, but I'm just looking at a little slice of your life at that point. Here, from this vantage point, I see the arc of your story and your willingness to press through, press on, keep going. By God's grace, keep going. And I want to follow you. I want to follow you because you keep going. So I hear myself when you say, but it is also for all who follow me. May they take sustenance from the fact that their relative, my father, walked through the wilderness at the age of 75 with his dog because he had to.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives are ordained. Let us live our individual mandates to the full. Then you say, you, my children, my friends, and I love this, your love for every human being here is evident. Even you whom I pass on the street and will never see again. All of you, whoever you are, however long from now you walk this earth, I give you all the love God put in my heart beyond measure. I cannot contain it. That's those who know you know that you have stuff inside you can't contain. And the Jekyll Hyde thing, that would be anger that you couldn't contain. But there's a love in your heart also that you can't contain. There's an appreciation of beauty that you can't contain. There's an appreciation of nature that you can't contain. There's an appreciation of music that you can't contain. I remember as a boy watching Little House on the Prairie on Monday night. It's like, okay, there he goes, crying again. Watching Michael Landon hug his kids or whatever it was, you know.
Whenever anybody hugs somebody on TV, I'm on the verge of tears. Yeah. And, you know, I recently observed that tears, this fits what we're saying, that tears are the relief valve, at least for me. They are the relief valve for when I see more than I can contain.
I remember you saying that, and I love that. Say that again, because we need to hear that and let it sink in.
Yeah, tears are the relief valve for when I see, when my whole heart and soul and being sees so much more than I have the ability to express or give words to, or if I were Michelangelo, to paint.
Yeah.
I see so much more than I can contain. I cannot hold it all in. I cannot. And it's maybe tears are sort of an awareness of the fullness of God. Mm. And that I am his child.
Pop, your ability even to just feel that and allow yourself to feel it live on YouTube blesses me, and I know anybody in touch with their own hearts feel that blessing as well. And I shared this story with you recently, a memory that came to me of when you've always loved golden retrievers, and I remember when you brought home our first golden retriever puppy. I was 12 years old, and as an attorney, you gave the dog the name
Judge.
And you used to love to say, "Sit down, Judge," and give commands to the judge.
Right.
And I told this story recently in another YouTube video. You might want to check out our channel. And Thomas, what was the name of that video?
I don't remember. What was the rest of it?
About the dogs?
Oh, yeah. I'll pull it up.
Okay, Thomas will put a link to this other YouTube video in the show notes where we did a little short featurette where I was talking about my journey with dogs, which has been painful. Oh, man. It was 1981 that we got Judge, and it was 1984 that you picked me up at school, which was unusual. You picked up me and Emily at Sacred Heart School. I was in 8th grade. And your car I was coming outside to walk home, and your car was there. And I thought, I wonder why Dad's here. And we got in the car, and you said, Judge is dead. And the tragic story was that a dog had gotten into our backyard and got caught up in the line that Judge was on and strangled Judge. Judge was only 3 years old. And I remember the devastation of that loss to me. I had been wounded by the loss of another dog that you remember from when I was younger. And I had when we lost that other dog when I was like 9 years old, I was like, never again am I going to let a dog in my heart. And then Judge comes into my life, and I tried not to let Judge in there because I didn't want to get hurt again. But then Judge leaps into my heart too, and the barrier comes down, and I fell in love with Judge and let him in there, and then he's dead, tragically dead after 3 years. And I remember pounding on the rib cage of that carcass in our backyard and saying, never, ever again will I let a dog in my heart. And my heart closed. Well, you went and got a sheet and asked me to help you hoist the dead dog onto the sheet, and we carried the sheet to the van, and we hoisted that dead weight, literally dead weight, literal dead weight, up onto into the back of the van to take it off to be cremated. And I remember you broke down in tears. And I'm 13 or 14, I guess 14 years old, and I'm just hard-hearted. I'm like, I'm not going to feel anything. And you had the courage to cry. You had the courage not just to cry, but you wept. And whoo, that was a seed that you planted in my heart 40 years ago. Because now our family dog, Wendy's and mine and our kids, our dog, which we got 12 years ago, inspired by you getting Theo. Thomas, you'll remember this, when your grandfather got Theo, you were 8 or 9 years old, and you were longing for a dog. Thomas was absolutely beside himself when he saw your golden retriever puppy, who you would take on the trail.
Yeah.
Thomas, as an 8 or 9-year-old boy, was utterly beside himself, begging for a dog. And that night, I was tucking Thomas in bed, and he's begging me, "Can we please get a dog? Can we please?" And I said, "Thomas, if you ever want to have a dog in our family, you got to pray for your papa, because I got issues." And Thomas took it on himself to pray for me, which led me to get to a place, I won't get into all those details, long story, but I got to a place where I was willing to open up my heart to bring a dog into our family. And now Mandy's 12 years old, so we only have her for at most a couple more years, life expectancy of a dog. And I've seen recently that I'm kind of like distancing myself from Mandy. Like, I don't want to get too close to her. And I'm like, why am I doing this to my dog? My dog is a barometer of how I'm doing. Like, if I'm pissed off at Mandy, something's going on in my heart. If I'm like resenting Mandy's needs, there's something going on in my heart that I need to look at. She is a barometer for what's going on inside. And so when I saw myself putting up these little barriers to closeness to Mandy, I was like, okay, what's going on? And I just took it to prayer, and I realized pretty quickly what's going on is I know Mandy's going to die soon. And I'm going to have to go through the grieving of losing a dog, and I'm trying to protect myself from that pain.
Can I interject something here?
Please.
We, of course, both know, as our whole family knows, we lost Emily in 2019.
My younger sister.
Yeah.
Yes, through cancer.
And she wrote a letter to Mom and me, and you've probably seen it somewhere in something I've put together about Em, where she apologized for withdrawing from Mom and me.
Oh.
She was keeping, like you with Mandy, she was keeping her distance because she wanted to prepare herself for her leaving. And she said...
So she was going through this withdrawal knowing she's going to die.
Knowing she's going to die. And she was preparing herself for that. And she apologized, and I think her last words were something in that letter, or something like, "I'm such a simpleton. I love you both so much." And I don't know why this came to my mind. The love, I cannot contain it. Emmy, I did a little bookmark with a poem on it that Emmy wrote. And it's love. Her lines are something: "Love as much as you do, not because it's right or a good thing, but because you do. Love as much as you do. Love as much as you do." And then she goes on to, "Each of us is the beloved." And it's a great mystery. And it's the only way to fill the ache, the gap that's in the human heart, is to be that beloved. And I'm thinking, as you're talking about shutting down that heart, which I did years and years ago over a relationship, I will not hurt
Again.
like that again. I think of Jesus. Forgive them. Talk about hurt.
Yeah, talk about a heart that stays vulnerable in the midst of abject agony.
Betrayal.
And he
loss.
says, follow me, follow me.
Do likewise. Never close your heart.
Well, Pop,
because,
go ahead, sorry.
Well, because God made that heart. And God's law is written on your heart. Never, never close it.
Right as I was closing my heart and locking it up when Judge, our dog, died, and you had the willingness to weep as a grown man. So 1984, you would have been 43 years old, and I saw my dad just break down. you planted a seed in me that nearly 40 years later came to me as I was distancing myself from my dog because she's going to die soon. And it gave me courage. It gave me a willingness to say, okay, I want to keep my heart open to the grief that will come when Mandy dies. And there, you get perspective in life. As I was saying earlier, you get the full arc of someone's story or a bigger picture of it. And I've come to see, as an adult and as a father, raising 5 children myself, just like you raised 5 children, and we have the same order.
Same order,
boy,
amazing.
boy, girl, boy, girl.
Yep.
I've come to appreciate ways that you fathered me that I didn't even know you did. And things that I had been so angry at you for because they caused me so much pain, that ended up 40 plus years later looking back and seeing the graces that came into my life from what at the time was just abject suffering. And you'll probably remember this. You will remember this.
Can we play the video and take a break after this story?
Oh, we want to play a video and take a little break after.
You can finish this
Well,
story.
I think we kind of need to wrap this up soon, don't we?
Yeah, we can go either way.
Yeah, why don't I tell this story and then I'll bring it in for a landing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We were on the trail, a trail in 2014, one of your training hikes, and it was 20 years out in 2014, 20 years out from when you and Mom moved back to Lancaster, having moved our family in 1987 to Gaithersburg, Maryland. And you moved to Gaithersburg, Maryland to be part of a Catholic community down there. And I was 17 years old at the time and wanted nothing to do with religion, wanted nothing to do with going to this Catholic community, wanted nothing to do with this, what I just considered this religious kick that you and Mom were on. And it was a terrible upheaval, that move. And I've revisited this many, many times in my life, how painful that was. I keep coming back to it as a very important part of my story. So it's now 2014, and we're hiking in the woods together. You're training for the Appalachian Trail. It's 20 years since you moved back to Pennsylvania. And I say to you, 20 years later, do you look back at those 7 years that you guys moved us to Maryland? And do you have anything further to say about why you moved there? What was that whole 7-year chunk of time? And you said to me, and I never knew this until I was, how old was I in 2014? 45 years old. I never knew till I was 45 years old that one of the main reasons you moved our family to this Catholic community was because you saw me getting in sexual trouble as a teenager, and you wanted something different for your son than what you had. And whereas my response should have been gratitude for all you sacrificed for me, my immediate reaction was rage because of how much pain that caused me, that move. And I remember saying to you on the trail, what did you expect, that by moving the family to Gaithersburg, Maryland, to be part of this community, that I would break up with my girlfriend, give my life to Jesus, and get my sexuality in order? And as the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, holy Moses. That's kind of what unfolded because of that move. Because of that move. And it was such a lesson to me, but it took me another 7 years to work through the pain to get to a place where I could say, which I finally was able to say 30 whatever years later to you and Mom, thank you for all the sacrifices you made so that I could have the wife I have. I never would have discovered John Paul II's theology of the body. I never would have met Wendy. I wouldn't have the kids that I have. I wouldn't have the work that I do, that I love, sharing John Paul's teaching with the world. And that decision you made at great cost to yourself has borne fruit around the world. I mean, who could have ever imagined in 1987 when I ran away from home because I wanted nothing to do with your move to Gaithersburg, Maryland, how the Lord would work in and through all of that. Talk about the interior journey we all have to go on, and the interior journey that is sacramentalized, meaning made visible and visceral and physical through something like hiking the Appalachian Trail. Again, I want to return to this idea that what you did there, you did it for you, but as you came to know and understand, you did it for your, I mean, it broke something open for your progeny. And I'm the direct beneficiary of that. And I want to close with this story before we wrap this all up. The symbol of your coming to a new place in your life, the symbol of your, in many ways, being true to the God-given Soren West, who you really are, was the fact that on the trail, you grew your hair and you grew your beard. You know, before you left, again, I'll bring up this picture. This is my dad before he left on the trail, and that's how I always knew your face, right? Move it over. Is that good? That's how I
Your dear mother wishes she could see it again.
That's Thomas here is bringing. There it is. That's how I always knew your face, right? But then, 7 months into the trail,
that is one hairy dude.
That
right
is
there.
one hairy dude. That hairy dude, that mountain man, wild dude. Your beard became a symbol to me of the journey you were making on the trail. And there's a picture that you have in your book of the first time I saw you. This was when we gathered where were we for your 75th birthday?
I think it was Middletown, Virginia, the northern end of the Shenandoah.
Okay, so we were in Middletown, Virginia. We all drove there to celebrate your 75th birthday, June 4th, 2016. And this is a picture of when I saw you for the first time with your long hair and your beard. Are we getting that, Thomas?
Yeah, we got it.
And I was mesmerized by your beard. I mean, obviously, beards are symbols of fatherhood and wisdom, and gray beards are
manhood,
man masculinity, obviously. But your gray beard was the symbol of wisdom and age. And I got this line from Jeanette Clark. She and I were teaching a course together recently, and she said, our goal is not just to become older, but to become an elder. And I saw you. I mean, the trail is, I believe, when you stepped into the role of elder. And I remember running my fingers through your beard, and it was feeding some deep, deep place in my soul of the need to be your son, and the need to have you father me. And we're all wheat and weeds growing together, right? And you and I have had lengthy conversations in my adult life about the weeds that I experienced through you, and I've been able to forgive you, and you've been able to ask for forgiveness. But I just want to say in closing here that I see so much wheat in you, Pop. And I see you facing those weeds with courage and fortitude and God's graces. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you have accomplished in opening that pathway for your offspring to continue making the journey. I'm honored to be your son. I'm honored that you're my dad, and you opened up a way that if I follow it, it will lead the whole way to heaven. I'm utterly convinced of it. I want to close here with the highlight of the trail, if I can. You go ahead
Can
and
I
say
shoot something in here?
Please.
And then that probably is a great way to finish. But I'm just the beard is a part here for sure. But you know my background in alcoholic parents and physical violence and so forth. I think somehow at that time I would wander into the woods a lot, and I think in a way I was not at all conscious of, Mother Nature was becoming my mother. In a very
say that again. Mother Nature was
becoming my mother in a very
when
real,
you were in the when you were
I
on
was
the
in
trail.
the woods with my mother passed out on a couch or whatever.
When you were a boy and you're in the woods,
Yeah.
you felt that you were being mothered by creation itself.
It's just a natural thing
Yeah.
that happened
Yeah.
under the circumstances. It
Fascinating.
wasn't a design at all, but it was what the circumstances caused to happen. And later in life, when I said yes to the trail, it was clear to me there was no way I was bringing a razor.
Yeah.
No way in hell, pardon me. I mean, probably another 3 ounces, but I weighed down my pack too much. But, I mean, I was going
And
natural
you know what?
man.
You never talked about that. I don't remember you talking about it, but I knew you were not going to bring a razor. It was just, of course you were not going to shave. You're going out into creation. Why would you shave?
No sense to it whatsoever. I was going back. I was going to be in the bosom, if you will, of my mother, feminine nature, and I am going to be a man.
Amen. Woo!
I'm going to be all man,
In
head
Mother
to
Nature.
toe, in Mother Nature, and it's a cause for celebration. I had no idea that I was going. I mean, I'm sure that. I mean, I thanked God. I prayed. I thought of the Shema. I did all kinds of things, and yes, every step was a prayer. People would ask me, "Did you find God?
Yes.
Or did you pray or whatever?" I'd say every step was a prayer.
Awesome.
Not a prayer as in I hope I make it, but a way of connecting
Praying, yes.
with God. It was my yes, God, yes, Mother Nature, yes, life, yes, Soren, yes, Sojo passing through, yes, I am heading home.
Well, you say here, when you get to Katahdin, you say, a room full of earthly diadems could not mean more than touching the sign at Katahdin's summit. It was as if Mother Mary herself placed her tender hand on the cheeks of all who finished the trail in reverence for their deed and the ancient goal that prompted it.
Amen.
All right, so we would be remiss if we don't close with this story.
Oh,
So Thomas, producer of our YouTube channel, my second-born son, your grandson, took this picture.
among many at that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Thomas and I and my son Isaac, just so happened we had looked at our calendar and said, when can we join you on the trail? And it just so happened that this 3-day window was what was going to work. And it just so happened that 3-day window ended up being the most glorious hike of the whole trail
And
for you.
And in the book, I describe how tenuous meetings are.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to change, you adjust the date. I won't be here then, I'll be here then, and so on and so forth. And yet it came to pass that we were there together. And Thomas, did you use my phone for that photo?
I think I did, yeah.
I think you must have. And I don't know, I don't remember giving it to you. I don't remember anything about the passage of the phone to Thomas, but he took these incredible photos. And maybe you'll read some of what I wrote about this.
Sure.
But let me describe it.
Please do.
Not as well as I wrote it, I don't think. But, and again, it's as if it's like the meeting of the couple that you had met in Vermont.
Oh yeah, that was a crazy story. I the year before, I was driving through Vermont and picked up these hikers on the side of the road who were hitchhiking, and I just happened to mention to them, "Oh, my dad next year is going to be hiking the Appalachian Trail," and you ran into them.
They went back to a dirt road where they had crossed in 2015 on June 7th. On June 7th, I crossed that same road, and there they are. And they say, "Do you have a son named?" I said, "Where?" They said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Lancaster, Pennsylvania." "Do you have a son named Christopher?" I said, "Yes." And then it went on from there. And, it just blew my mind. But what number
Yeah,
of
the number of things that
things
had to come together
that
for you
had
to run
to-
into this couple that I had met by chance, hitchhike. They were hitchhiking, and I picked them up
Yeah.
in Vermont.
Yeah.
And you meet them a year later. And I mentioned you to them. It's just,
And she had written in her journal that night, "I hope I get to meet Christopher's father to give him trail magic because he has been so kind to us."
so trail magic is when people bring food to
Bring
you.
food.
Yeah.
Bring food. But anyhow,
Franconia Notch.
Franconia Notch was like that.
Yeah.
It was that that we were together, that Thomas ended up with my phone, that I'm on this ridge, and it was such an extraordinary time. The weather was
Oh, it was unbelievable.
and the clouds would sweep in, then they'd sweep out. They'd sweep in, and they'd sweep out. You could see the mountains in the distance, and then you couldn't. And the wind is blowing in your face like crazy. This picture doesn't quite show how much the wind was
Yeah.
blowing, but and something in me. I mean, it was as though Mother Nature was saying, "Oh, Soren, it's so good to have you back here. I've been waiting for you, and you said yes,
Woo!
and here we are." And she was talking to me like crazy, down in my gut. And it came out in an Indian war whoop like crazy. I was screaming back at Mother Nature's wind voice coming at me with everything I had in me. Everything I had in me. As I was looking out over the deep ravine and toward the mountains in the west, and the winds coming in and out and so forth. Anyhow, and I wrote about that. But this was the most, you said to me after this event, you said, "Pop, what has been the most extraordinary moment on the trail so far?" I don't think you finished your question before I said, "This one."
Yeah. What an honor wasn't that awesome, Thomas, that we got to be.
I'm just like pinching myself hearing the recap. That was crazy.
It was unbelievable.
I mean,
I was
Thomas-
12 years old there, and that's why
That
I
same-
did the trail, because of what happened there.
Thomas and I and Isaac having that experience with you is something we'll never forget for the rest of our lives.
Wow. Well,
Amazing.
I won't for the rest of mine either, but
You have a little less.
it won't take quite as long.
Pop, thank you so much. That's a great note to end on. It's been a blessing to have this conversation with you and to share with my followers the gift that you are.
Well, thank you so much, Christopher. And I really, really have enjoyed this. As your mother is very well aware, I can talk forever about the Appalachian Trail. I am mining its treasures. I will. There's no question. On and on and on and throughout my days. So I say to anybody, you got a have to thing going on inside your heart and soul. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it.
Did you hear that? Go ahead and do it. Peace, Pop. I love
Peace
you.
to you. Love you too, buddy. Wake, eat, pack, hike, eat, hike, camp, eat, sleep. That's a day. I don't want to know where I'm going to sleep every night. I don't want the same old routine. I want to not know what's around the bend. When Theo came around the desk at the breeders, that tail wagged my heart like captured prey. And that's the truth of it. I have always had a special place in my heart for Theo. As a 12-year-old, I went to a camp. We did a 5-day hike in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And that's almost like a biblical verse to me. At age 14, I'm away at a boarding school. I have a roommate. I said, Joe, let's hike the Appalachian Trail. And from that moment, it was locked in place. Of course, I went on to college, England for a year, then law school, and ultimately a family with 5 children. So life took over. I didn't know that the Appalachian Trail was brewing in there like my turn. My youngest son said one year, Dad, you better get doing that trail pretty soon or you're going to be the first guy to do it with a walker. I mean, so many people might think, oh gosh, at my age I can't do that. But it was something I had to do. And it turned out that's what happened. Someone asked him, well, what if Theo dies on the trail? Well, he'll be doing what he wants to do, following his master. And he followed me every step, wind, rain, sleet, cold, heat. I really question whether I would have been able to do the trail without him. It was as if Mother Nature knew that I needed to come back from being a 12-year-old, that I needed to get back there. I get teary thinking about it. And I did. I got back there.